You're listening to the Into the Woods podcast with your hosts, Dermot and Michael. Let's get into it.
Wonderful chase by Hinshaw.
Cox again. I cannot believe it. Dacos nearly runs out of room. He's goal.
Jamie Elliott has won the game of footy for this famous club.
Slap for Nick Dacos. He's going to be the hero. The little champ is going to pick the winner.
Here's the Degoe moment. He unloads. Bang! You need your stars. And Collingwood stars just went and wrenched the cup back.
Welcome to Into the Woods. I'm your host Dermot, and for the next hour or so, we'll be talking about all things Collingwood. If you want to join in the conversation, be sure to follow our socials. You can find us on X at Into the Woods Pod and on Instagram at Into the Woods Pod 10. Once again, I'm joined by Michael. How are you, Mick?
Yeah, good, thank you.
You know, for once it'd be nice if you could give me a little bit more.
We've had this conversation.
No, I'm not asking you to ask me how I am. It would just be nice if you could continue the conversation, seeing as I do the opening.
Well, I've offered to do the opening. Like 37 seconds ago when you were struggling with this opening, I said, can I do it? And you said, and I'll quote, know your shit. So...
True. Wise words from a wise man.
Yes.
Well, this is the last time that we're going to be doing this via Zoom, actually. So we'll be back in the Into the Woods studio next week. So that will be exciting, but we'll make the most of our last Zoom meeting. Hopefully no technical issues, because that's been the most frustrating thing over the last 6 weeks. But
Do you reckon your mother calls her second bedroom the Into the Woods studio?
Or, we've got the study at my house as well as the backup Into the Woods studio. Yes, that's very... Yeah, shut up, Michael. It's embarrassing, but yeah, no, it's currently 9 a.m. here in Perth, and earliest I've ever had to do this, so my voice is a little bit croaky. You might be able to hear it. I've still got my morning coffee. Yeah, but let's get through this nice and quickly. Have you got anything to say before we get into all the hot topics, Mick?
I don't think so, no.
All right, let's get into it. Here's all the hot topics.
We've listened to the wisdom of Sir Winston Churchill and the brilliance of genius Albert Einstein. In the 60s, we heard the great JFK. Now, all the great minds are talking footy.
All right, see, that's how tired I am. That's the first time I've ever got the intro wrong, but...
What do you know? No, it isn't.
I normally say, and
No,
here's all the hot topics, but...
Oh, the intro today. Oh, no. I've watched him at the intro generally. And remember a couple of weeks ago, he took 11 takes to get the intro right. Going back about 2 or 3 weeks, yeah. Anyway.
All right, so the win on Thursday night. One of the more... It wasn't pretty, but it's probably one of the more gutsy performances I've seen in a while. In terms of the amount of players that we had out, obviously resting Pendlebury, Degoe, Maynard, Mychek was carrying a bit of an injury. I'm not sure if he would have been okay to play or if it was more of a rest. It sounded like it was an injury. Originally came out as a rest. And then obviously Nick went down injured in the game. And our midfield it was almost VFL level, really, because Steele Sidebottom was way below his best and eventually got subbed out. Ned Long was quiet, his first quiet game in a while. And, that really showed. Like, our midfield absolutely got destroyed. In centre clearances, we lost 20-8 and conceded 62 inside 50 to 34. Yet we got up by 14 points. So it was like I said, a really gutsy win. Our defense, obviously under a lot of pressure, really stood up, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. and there was a one-man midfield with Jack Crisp making up for that kick last week with probably one of his greatest ever performances. I don't know what you think, but tell me your thoughts of the game.
Well, my thoughts of the game was one of those games where it was a kind of a 1 in 5 year win. You have these type of wins, really back to the wall wins. Like I said, once every 4 or 5 years. I got some notes here. So it's a WA trip. Notes we all know, but in bringing them all together, WA trip, 5-day break. Noah was cited 1 off 5 days this year. We had all those outs. First time ever I can remember that neither Dacos played well. Once Schultz went down, one short.
Wasn't that sickening?
Yeah, I've seen worse. So with just all those things against us and coming up against a side who were keen to redeem themselves from a pathetic effort the week before on their home deck. That was one of the great wins. And just looking through the stats, like they beat us on nearly every key stat. And one of them, so you got the inside 50s, as you mentioned, 62-34. But they bombed it in. I saw the stat that the Pies took 16 back, 16 intercept marks in the back 50. So that's a big number. So that kind of indicates how they were bringing it in. They were bringing it in very poorly. And we've spoken about the fact it's just not the number of inside 50s you get. It's the quality of those inside 50s. And that's where they let themselves down. And, of course, our kicking for goal, other than with a couple of exceptions, a couple of noticeable misses.
It's quite good.
It was very good. That's another thing that helped us a lot, that we were very efficient when going in. We, as you know, jumped early, but turnovers and getting a lot of balls out the back, got us back into the game. Because their backmen were pushing up and we were able to get like the likes of Bobby Hill and Elliott got goals over the back early on. So
we need to start games better. We conceded the first 3 against Geelong as well. So I think that's something that we can definitely work on. But what was your opinion on resting 4 players at once? That's it. I know it was 5-day break. We were traveling to WA. We've got an old team. But I get Pendlebury and I get Geordie to a certain degree. I get Geordie. You know, he looks like he's a bit underdone at the moment. Nothing you can do about Checkers if he was injured. But I think it was going a little bit over the top without being in the club and not knowing what's going on. I think it was a little bit over the top having to rest Maynard as well. You know, a 29-year-old that's body seems to be pretty sound. He hasn't missed a lot of footy in his career.
Well, like you say, each one in isolation kind of makes a lot of sense. So my check, hard to know how bad the injury was, but if it was bad enough, well, can't do much about that. De Goey's been struggling and really wasn't. He's a big name, but he hasn't been playing well. Yeah. So that wasn't really a big loss, I wouldn't have thought. Pendlebury, well, he's a 37-year-old, long trip to WA. He needs rest throughout the year. And so Maynard's a bit of a question mark. The one that still puzzles me more is the prior week where they rested Howe against Geelong. We spoke about that. I suppose they had earmarked to rest him, obviously, in this pocket of games. And I suppose they couldn't have done it against Essendon, as I mentioned last week, because Darcy Moore was out.
And nobody wants to sit out Anzac Day either.
Yeah. So,
and they couldn't have rested him against Freo because you're not going to have, if they were already planning on resting these 4 guys, you couldn't rest 5.
No. So look,
it worked out. But can you imagine if we lost this game and we lost back-to-back games and all of a sudden we were back in the pack around about 4 to 6? Yeah, then there would have been a bit of criticism, I reckon. But
yeah, they obviously had confidence in the guys they were bringing in. And we kind of criticised them, or at least I did. I wasn't the only one, though, last year because they did the opposite. They were bringing guys. I remember they brought Myercheck back from a hammy after 2 weeks, where really you want every bit of 3 weeks. And he came back and he did it again. And they will bring Jordan De Goey back from his abdominal strains early. And yeah, he kicked the winning goal against Adelaide for us, but then he was out for multiple weeks thereafter. And they didn't send Mitchell off for operation on his foot injury, and that blew out. I think they're being very cautious after having learned something last year. But
it's a great sign. Like we've rested all these guys throughout the year. I was a bit nervous about this one, resting 4 at once, but we got through it. So we've rested all these guys over multiple weeks. We're 7-2. We've got through what was a really difficult first 9 rounds of the year. Like we mentioned it in the preseason how difficult our draw was, and we were both a little bit nervous about it. Now our draw opens right up. We've still got teams like West Coast and Richmond and North Melbourne, who we haven't played yet. And we only have to leave Victoria twice for the rest of the year because despite what people say, we've done a lot of travelling in the first couple of months. We've been to WA, Adelaide, Queensland, Sydney. So, yeah, I think we're in a really, really good position. Let's just hope we don't stuff it up from here.
Right. Just a couple of things on the rest. I heard Darcy Moore interviewed after the game, and he said, you probably won't see as much in the coming weeks with resting. He said there might be individual players, but there's not going to be any wholesale resting. Going to become less common. And on the fixture coming up, not going into state only twice, I can just see all the people on Twitter having a field day with this. But what they don't understand is a couple of things. We've got a fantastic record when we do travel.
Oh yeah.
So it could be an argument we want to travel more.
We always have, ever since I've been watching the Pie, since about the 2002 kind of era. We've been amazing on the road.
Yeah. Well, as you know, we've won 10 in a row in Adelaide, and we've what was the stat from WA I saw from McRae?
That he hasn't lost there, I don't think, in his coaching tenure.
He hasn't lost there.
So we had a draw last year.
So that's and we do as well as anybody does in Brisbane. We won there last year and this year. Sydney, not as good up in Sydney against GWS and the Swans. But without seeing the stats, I'd be surprised if there was another side with a better travel record than us. But the other reason we don't travel, one of the main reasons we don't travel much is because every other side in the league goes cap in hand to the AFL come October every year when they're doing the fixture for the following year, wanting to play Collingwood at the MCG. One, to maximise to maximise the gate, as far as money goes, and the other one is to get big game experience at the MCG in front of big crowds. So that's what they want. They all come and say, we want to play Collingwood at the MCG. We want to play Collingwood at the MCG. That's what these fools don't realise. It's their clubs who are asking to play us there.
Did I read somewhere that GWS are trying to get a home game at the MCG against Collingwood? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah, that was. I heard it a couple of weeks ago. I've heard nothing more since. But yes, I believe they do want to.
And then the social media guy constantly makes fun of Collingwood for not travelling, yet their club is requesting to play home games at the G against us. Doesn't quite make sense, but
as they say, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So.
Yeah, so anyway, we've got those guys coming back next week. I think Ralphie or Tom Morris or one of those guys said that all 4 guys will be available next week. That's Pendlebury, De Goey, Maynard, and Myercheck. And I was thinking, it's going to be a big episode of the selection table today. But I think we're going to have to give that segment a miss because we're doing this what day is it today? Saturday at 9:30 or 11:30 Melbourne time. And
we a segment I totally forgot about. We haven't got time for.
We haven't got no. We would have time for it, but at this point in time on Saturday at 11:30, we don't know the news on potential injuries to Dacos, Moore, and Elliott. Apparently, they're all going in for scans.
Oh,
did you not hear that?
Well, I knew Dacos was sore, and he described it as sore. He said, "I'm not injured, I'm sore." So I'd heard that. I didn't hear anything about Moore and Elliott. Well, what's there?
Moore hurt his shoulder very, very late. He was holding it in the last 30 seconds or so.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I did.
And Elliot, I can't remember. I can't remember, but there could be something wrong with Jamie. And on top of that, you got Lockie Schultz, who's obviously out with concussion. So worst case scenario, we lose those four. Well, then the rested four just replace those four. You would have thought, but hopefully that's okay. So hopefully, my gut feel is Nick and Jamie and Darcy will be okay. I think they'll be fine. But we're very unlucky. I think I saw someone say on Twitter, he said, "Oh, I'd be surprised if Elliot isn't out for 4 to 6 weeks because it happens every year. Elliot's in amazing form, and then something happens, and he's out for a long period of time."
He finished the game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
I'll repeat something I said about Nick Dacos a few weeks ago. Because of the position he plays, because of the attention he receives, because of the physical contact he receives, I would actually like, and I know he's only 22, but I'd actually like to see him rested at some point. Given a week off. I know all the people who doing the Brownlow watch, the Dacos Brownlow watch would be loath to hear that. But we're not Carlton. We don't care about Brownlows, about Coleman medals. We care about premierships. All right, it's not about individual awards. So, yeah, I would like to see them rest Dacos at some point, just to give us, back end of the year, just give them a freshen up for the finals. If we're in a position to do that, as far as the ladder goes, that would be great. Yeah.
Before we get into the players that I guess starred on the nights, let's talk about a couple of these guys that came in to replace those rested players. And one of our boys that we've been talking up all year finally got 4 quarters, and that is Ed Allen. What did you think of Ed's first game? First game for over 4 quarters for the year? I think it might be actually, yeah.
Yeah, I look, overall he was quietish. I thought he built towards as the game got on. He started to get better. I was reasonably happy with it. When there's different mindsets for players who are constantly in and out of the side and in and out off the subs role and that type of thing. They don't play with the confidence that other players do, who are more secure in the side. So I take that into consideration a bit. But yeah, depending on who's coming back next week, I would definitely prefer to see him in front of, as we've well documented, in front of Will Hoskinelli. He gave us very little again. Hopefully he's ahead.
He took a nice mark to kick the first goal of the game.
Yeah, he took a nice mark. Yeah, it was kind of set up for him. It was Oleg. Look, I don't want to be too critical of Oleg. How long was he on for? But
a quarter.
What's that?
Only a quarter.
Only he got 1 kick as a sub. You want a bigger impact from the sub than that.
Yeah.
Pressure guy who's a running machine. He got 1 disposal. So hopefully he's in front of Oleg as well. We'll talk later on with the Julian Rowe medal as far as who played well. But yeah, I was reasonably happy with his game. How about, what did you think?
I was a little bit disappointed because we've just built this up for so long. We've wanted to see him get a full game for so long. He ended up with the 11 disposals. It wasn't a high night for disposals. Like Crispy got to 29, and then other than that, no one got over 20. Darcy Cameron was our next leading disposal winner on 19. So it could be a bit harsh. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed, but I'd like to see him get another go. You can't just drop him after a week. Who I was impressed with, and I'll talk about him a little bit now because I actually didn't give him any votes for the Julian Rowe medal, but I was impressed with Lockie Sullivan. I thought he was good.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I've got special mention, because I'm sure he's listening, for Lockie Sullivan. He didn't make my votes, but special mention to Lockie Sullivan. I thought he was good.
He was solid. It was more to eye test. Like, he ended up with the 17 disposals. He had a good amount of tackles, good amount of pressure acts, nothing like crazy. It was just the eye test. He's just a neat player. He just did some good things, and if it was one of those two that's going to hold their spot for next week, say all these guys that I started going in for scans are fit, and then all the rest of guys come back. So there's obviously going to be at least 4 changes. If it was only one of Allen and Sullivan that could hold their spot, who would you choose? Because obviously we love Ed Allen and he's the future. But if you're going off performance, Lockie Sullivan, I think, was a lot better.
Yeah, look, we spoke about this about a month ago, and at the time I was stronger in my opinion. I'm thinking Lockie Sullivan's a bit of a journeyman. He's not the future. Ed Allen was our first-round draft pick. We have to invest time into our young guys. We have to get games into them. I'm not as strong at it because I've warmed to Lockie Schultz over the last month, and he's another guy who's going to make it difficult for the likes of Tom Mitchell to come in, even though Tom Mitchell is a better inside mid than him. Lockie Sullivan has got a little bit, he can play forward a bit better than Mitchell can. He can kind of play a defensive forward role. And, of course, Long would be keeping Mitchell out of his main role. But back to the Sullivan-Allen debate, I'd still go for Allen. I think we need to get games into him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would too, but I don't know if you and I are just a little bit biased because we've just spent all year talking Ed Allen up.
Oh yeah, but putting any emotional attachment aside, if you've got a number one draft pick, a young number one draft pick, and you got a mid-20s journeyman who's never going to be a great player, and they're kind of 50-50, I think most people would say, well, most clubs would say, put time into the young guy.
It would just be really hard to drop Sullivan after a game like that.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. Well, that's the art of the selection table, which we're not supposed to be doing the selection table today.
No, it's not. This is an unofficial selection table, Mick.
Okay.
You talk to Tom Mitchell. We'll just quickly mention he's playing today in the VFL. It's his return game. In fact, has the game started? What time's the game start? Let's have a look. VFL Live. No, it starts at 12:05. I think that's Perth time, so 2:05 Melbourne time. So hopefully he can get through that game. How many games in the VFL do you reckon Titch is going to need before you can even consider him for selection in the AFL side?
Before you can consider, I reckon minimum of 4. And minimum of 4 and probably more. Look, before you can consider him, that's even before consideration. And then that depends on how the team's going at that point. And because he's done very little pre-season, very little training, from what I understand. What would you say?
I was thinking 3 before you consider him. I think that's a good number.
Yeah, we'll split here. Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking if there's say Ned Long or a midfielder or something like that goes down injured, or we want to rest someone again, and Mitch was been in the VFL for 3 weeks, then I wouldn't hesitate to bring him in. Anything before that, no, I wouldn't. And after 3 weeks, if there's just simply not a spot for him in the team and none of our players need a rest, then just keep on going until that opportunity is there. But I think 3 weeks is the number if the situation is right.
Well, if this is an unofficial selection table, I can quickly talk about something else. Another Tom McGuan watch. Very excited to bring it to you today. Nothing's happening. That's it. From what I can gather, he didn't play. He's playing. What's the date? I think he's playing today or tomorrow. Last week's game. It didn't look like he played. He must have been rested. The Western Jets got thumped again. I don't think they're a very good side. I don't think they've won a game yet. And they're big margins too when they get beaten. I was looking through the stats, couldn't see his name. Doesn't look like he played. So
fascinating. Thanks, Meg. Thanks for interrupting Hot Topics with the news that nothing has happened.
Nothing has happened. It's all, nothing's changed, which is important to clarify.
One last thing on the resting of these players. I was a little bit annoyed at the time. As someone that was at the ground, I didn't know, obviously, if anything else was going on. I was just a little bit annoyed that the game was up for grabs at 3/4 time and we chose to still sub him off. I know he wasn't having a great game, but he's class and he's been close to our best player all year. We've got Nick injured. We've got all these guys out. Game up for grabs. Was that really the right time to sub him off? I know it worked out in the end. But geez, I keep on thinking, we won by 14 points.
Well,
3 straight kicks to Fremantle, and we would have lost, and we would have been looking at this a lot more differently. Like, what did you think? Was there something that I missed? I haven't read anything about him being injured.
no, he was described in the telecast as a tactical sub. Now, I'm not sure if they meant from the point of view he hadn't been playing well, so get him off because he hadn't been playing well, or there was a suggestion it was kind of resting him during a game. More resting, basically, was what one commentator said. I forget who it was. So you think to yourself, okay, if they're taking him off the ground because he's not playing well and they don't think he can contribute in the last quarter given his form, fair enough. That's a judgment call. But if they're choosing to rest another player after having given 4 the whole game off, that's maybe going a bit too far. I would have thought they would have. I texted George, and I think I may have texted you at the time. WHE sub ? So Will Hoskin Elliott he was to me the one they should have subbed off.
It was strange. Like, yeah, for me, like if they were resting him, I think that's a big no. In terms of we've already rested all these players, you've only got 1 quarter left. Like, he wasn't playing a great game, but he could turn it around and win you a game. He's that kind of player. The big no. Like, I understand the resting, but Jesus, we need to bank 4 points as well. And you only got 1 quarter of football to go. Just push through it still. Like that.
Yeah.
And so the tactical side of things as well. If they thought, he can't make an impact because he's not playing well, no, that's correct because he's still a class player. How many times have you seen great players have an average game, then they've had their moment and won the game for their team? Like, so I purely think it was resting, and I just think that was pushing it. That was going too far. Yeah, I don't like to be too critical after a win. But yeah, that pissed me off at the time. I was actually quite angry. All right, let's talk about the players that performed on the night. And we'll just
the Julian Rowe medal, is that what we're going into?
no, Michael, just hear me out. We'll talk about the defense.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Can you just sit back and just
Well-
you've been wanting to do some hosting for the best part of a year, but you don't know what's going on your own show. You're asking questions. Just let me go with it and just sit there and answer the questions I'm going to ask you.
Yes, that's how this podcast has evolved over the last 18 months, that I just respond to agenda which is set by you.
But you don't know what's going on.
I've got no independence. I've got yeah.
You don't know what's going on.
Keep on going.
The defense. Let's talk about the 4 guys in particular I want to talk about in this back 6. Billy Frampton, Darcy Moore, Jeremy Howe, and Harry Perryman. What a game from those 4 guys. Like, what were the inside 50s again? 62-34. Like, they were under the pump, and man, they stood up. I think that was Billy Frampton's best game for the club. I don't know what your opinion. I don't know what it looked like watching on the telecast, but at the game, he was like a brick wall.
A spoiler alert, he's in my votes.
All right, that's good.
Bill makes an appearance in my votes.
Do you agree that it was his best game, or?
Well, it was a very good game. He's played some good games. He's underrated. Like, sorry, T went down the wrong way. In the Premiership year, when we had 6 weeks without a ruckman, and he stepped into the breach, both Cox and Kemmer were injured. We don't make top 4 without Billy Frampton in 2023. I don't reckon. So this was a very good game. Whether it was his best game or was amongst the best handful. And I was a big believer in his grand final. I came across a tweet today describing him as the worst Premiership player ever. The usual garbage. Now, if you'd watched Harris Andrews in the prelim against Carlton, if he plays like that against Collingwood in the grand final, we don't win. We lose by 4 goals. He was that good in the prelim. Frampton was given a task to do, a negative defensive task, and he carried it out beautifully. And he's probably unlucky not to have nabbed a couple of goals because I think the occasion got to him and he tried to mark at the back of his hand a couple of times, like this type of thing. He did his job, and he did his job beautifully that day. And we don't win the Premiership without Frampton, I don't reckon. 1 kick game, Harris Andrews, if he got off the leash, we would have lost by 3, 4, 5 goals.
Yeah, no, he's been a really handy recruit. Like obviously he's a defender. He can play a bit of time in a ruck, and then yeah, he's won game as a forward. Well, he's probably played maybe a handful of games, but that one game as a defensive forward, he was yeah, amazing. For 3 quarters. His last quarter he lost his head a little bit, but yeah, I agree. I think he is underrated. I think since he's replaced Reef in this team, this has been his most consistent 5 to 6 weeks of his career because we've seen it in patches. We've seen him play really well on a say a Mackay or a Kerner or a Danaher in the past, play really really well, and then have the next 2 or 3 weeks where he's just no good. He's absolutely rubbish. I don't think he's played a bad game since he's come into the team. He's just consistently week in week out doing his job. And last night it just all came together, and he in a back six that is full of stars, your Darcy Moores and Jeremy Howes. I think he was the best of the lot. I think he was the brick wall, and I've got a lot of faith in Billy Frampton at the moment. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have a lot of faith. Like
Mm.
you and I were talking about our one major hole in this team going into the season was full back. That we didn't have a full back. I don't think that's a concern anymore. I don't think we need to think about that. We've got
Mm.
no reason to
Yeah,
doubt what he's doing.
yeah, he's still going to have because no, he's not a great player.
He's not a great player, but
He's
they don't
not
all have
even
to be great players. He just has to play his role, as you said,
yeah,
like a Presty role. But he's doing more than the Presty
yeah.
role. He's intercept marking. He's getting the ball. He's looking really good.
But he's still going to have his days where he gets really challenged and doesn't play well. That is going to happen. Yeah, he's disposed like he's underrated. He looks like a bit of a clutch, but clutch. What's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Klutz.
that's the word I'm looking for. But he's not a bad little kick. He's fairly safe with his disposal, like his 20-meter little
He,
pass.
he knows his limitations.
Does yeah.
Unlike you look back in the day, someone like a Taylor Adams that he would just try to pull off the miracle pass and it would just go completely wrong. Sorry to say, a bit of a dig. That was a bit unfair, but
A man's got to know his limitations, as Clint. So, and yeah, Adams never did know his limitations. He thought he was a Dacos.
we'll stick with the defense. So last week, you and I had very different opinions on Darcy Moore's game. How did you see him last night? How did you see his performance?
Oh, look, he was solid to me. Yeah, he was good. He was good. Didn't really catch my eye too much. He
He didn't catch your eye. He caught
no,
my eye. I thought he was outstanding.
well, spoiler, he's not in my votes, but he didn't catch my eye. He did his best to cost us another goal at one stage with his poor decision making. He got caught holding the ball, and luckily they didn't score from it. But no, oh look, he was solid enough. More.
Well, when you look at the inside 50s, like we've talked about, like what it is 62 to 34, he held up beautifully.
Yeah.
He was great. I think he was really, really, really good.
I've got a few defenders ahead of him. I got some defenders in there for there because it was like the clearances were 20. The centre square clearances were 20-8, so they slaughtered us in there. Even though that I think Darcy will beat. Not I was going to say Darcy Cameron was beaten at tap outs, but Cox started in there. I think we lost tap outs in the first quarter. I think they're Sam Darcy, is it? He was
Sean.
very. Sean Darcy was very good in there in the first quarter. And whether they'll capitalise him from that, I'm not sure. But, yeah, 20-8 overall centre square clearances. As you said, we look like we were the VFL on-ball division in there at times.
Well, can I just interrupt to go off topic a bit in these centre, and I would like to get your thoughts on this as well. I don't have it in my notes, but it's just hit me. So obviously Nick was struggling here with his hip, whether it's a corky, whether it's something a little bit more serious, we'll find out in time. But he was struggling, and so much so that we put him in the goal square in that second quarter.
Mm.
And I know you've been calling for him to play forward for
Yep.
quite some time. And he looked dangerous. He looked really dangerous. He kicked a goal. He set up one. He missed one that he should have kicked, but he looked dangerous. And then after half time, he then went back into the midfield, and straight away I thought, oh, good, he must be right. And he didn't look himself. And I know Elliot had a huge game, and I know Bobby Hill had a very, very good game, but I just feel like we could have kept Nick there. I think he was making more of an impact in the forward line than what he was in the midfield. He's also getting heavily tagged by Corey Wagner. I just didn't see why we would move him back.
Well, in their defence, in the last quarter, he was instrumental in those first 2 goals. With one was from a clearance from him to Elliott. I think wasn't he instrumental in both of those early 2 goals?
I don't recall. So yeah.
Yeah, I think you go back and have a look, and I think you'll find that the second one, I think, was from a pass from Dacos clearing it. And the first one, I think, was heavily involved into from a clearance. So, yeah, it worked out well in the end. But
it was so weird being at the game, and something that you wouldn't pick up on the telecast. I was just watching him in that second quarter. He was just him and his opponent. So he was playing full forward and the full back for Fremantle. They were the only 2 men inside 50 when the ball was in the Freo forward line, and it's just weird not seeing Nick around the ball. And he was the deepest forward. He wasn't pushing up at all, and his leading patterns were really good. He looked like a natural for a guy that's never played forward at the top level. He looked like a natural. It was very interesting to see.
Yeah. The commentators are saying how good he is at getting distance. How smart he is at creating that distance, the gap between he and his opponent. One thing though, he's similar to Pendlebury in that he doesn't like the set shots. He wouldn't have picked it up on the at the game, but that one he missed, he looked so nervous. He was trying to regulate his breathing. He was puffing in and out, trying to settle himself.
He does that. He does that every time. He's not nervous. He visualizes what he's going to do. That's a part of his routine.
I know what you're saying. You're talking about the grand final goal that he kicked.
Every set shot he does it.
But it was even more marked this time. You go back and have a look at it on TV. The goal that he did kick, he did it there, but he looked more settled. This one, he almost looked nervous. He looked real. Well, not almost nervous. He looked really nervous. I think he much prefers him like Pendlebury on the run. And I've said before. That he's just neither brother is just as natural around goals as the dad, as Peter. It was just so natural to him. He just go back and slot them, and they're good kicks, especially in the run. They're both good kicks for goal, but they're just not as fluent as he was. So yeah, I would like to see when you said I've been calling for go down there. Yeah, I'd like to see him rested more down there. And,
sorry, that's what I meant. Yeah,
create havoc. Yeah, not actually. Yeah, start, but
going back to the defense. Just one more player I want to talk about, and we talk about him every week, and that's Harry Perryman. It's kind of crazy that he's still in that back line because every single week there's someone missing. If it's Houston, then Moore, then Howe, now Maynard. There's always a reason for him to stay in that back seven. Our regular back seven just haven't been together at all this year, even though I think they've only all missed like one game each. It's not like any of them have had like a big period out of the team. Is next week going to be the week where we have... I'm just so interested to see how we use Perryman when these 7 are back together. He's just looking so bloody good in that defense. He's obviously the one to move out because he's the most flexible of the lot. But I don't really want him to move. He just looks awesome. He did spend a little bit of time in the midfield at times. Apparently, he was running with Caleb Sarong. I saw someone on Twitter say for a period of time. That's not something I noticed at the game. But for the majority of the match, he was in the back line and played another solid game. What the hell are we going to do with this guy? Does he stay in there and do we push Josh Dacos to a wing? I don't want that. I don't want that at all because I love Josh Dacos as a halfback. But I'm just talking about what we could do. Could we even... Houston's not playing amazingly. Could we even do something different with Houston? Could we put him around the ball more and leave Perryman there? Or is Perryman the obvious guy to play, say, a wing role like I was talking about last week and push back in defence if we need a helping hand?
I reckon you'd probably just leave him in the back line and just use him to fix problems throughout the game if problems arise. I think the default position, because he's playing so well back there, the default position should be to leave him there with the intention of moving him if needed. With Houston, I'd be I'd be loath to move Houston into the midfield because I think he just wanted him to settle at half back. He's played the one great game against was it Carlton early in the year?
It was Port Adelaide.
Oh,
and
Port Adelaide.
And he was decent against Carlton, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's having trouble fitting into the new game style. I assume that's what it is because he's only just going at the moment. I'd like to see him just left at half back and just work his way into our style of play, with the hope of him. If you've got the prospect of him and, for very different reasons, De Goey both hitting their straps at the business end of the year, how good would that be? Like two games that haven't given us anything, maybe until that point in the year, being able to have them fit and firing coming into finals. Yeah, that's a huge boost. So if we can get by with managing De Goey, with settling Houston down into the one position half back, if we can afford to do that, that's what I'd do. I wouldn't be throwing Houston around. It might further confuse the guy and unsettle him.
So what are we going to do? You're saying you want to leave Perryman in the back line, which is fine, but we've got Maynard to come back in. Then all of a sudden we've got 8 permanent defenders. That's just too many. Yeah,
I'm thinking about Quaynor. Quaynor again has been, but he's as you say, 8 don't go into 7. I'm not being highly critical of Quaynor. I'm just thinking he showed a few signs earlier on that he was doing okay, but his last couple of weeks he hasn't caught the eye. Not that he has to as a defender. So maybe Quaynor's the man.
To get dropped completely?
I don't know. Look, I don't know. That won't happen. Just mark my words. That won't happen because I've never seen Quaynor get dropped. And I'd like to see the likes of Will Hoskin-Elliott get dropped and Oleg out of the side again. Even though he didn't get a big go, he didn't really take his chance when he got it. So they would be the guys who would go first. But if you're talking about our best, if you're visualising our best back 6 or 7, Quaynor's at the very end of that, isn't he?
He is. He's number 7. I get that. But I was very critical of him last year. He was just playing horribly last year. This year, he's not starring, but he's been solid. I think he's been very, very solid. And this back 6, back 7 they just know each other's game inside out. They're the best back 6, back 7 in the comp. They've played years together, and Quayne has been a big part of that. And I'm not sure if I'd want to upset that. I wouldn't be dropping Quayner. It's just going to be interesting. It's just going to be Perryman. It's just been outstanding, but he is the most flexible. And he has been the guy that's gone back there because of these guys that have been out. So it's interesting. If he does stay there, Perryman, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Jeremy Howe. Jeremy Howe joined Collingwood from Melbourne and was promised a forward wing role because he apparently hated playing defence for Melbourne. And due to injuries and whatever, he had to plug a hole in defence in Bucks' side in about 2015 or whatever. And he was so bloody good at it, he just never moved again. Maybe that could be apparent. Perryman was offered a inside mid role, came over to the Pies, and has hardly played it since he's been there. But I think he will get his chance. Maybe not as an inside mid, because we've got a lot of them now, but he will be around the ball a little bit more, I think. I think he will settle on a wing. But it's going to be bloody interesting.
How good would have Howard been on the wing, given his marking ability as a target for a kick out? His kicking ability, going inside forward 50, he's one of our best kicks. His ability to go back and go forward. You could see him running deep to support the defence, and also a marking target in the forward line. He would have been a phenomenal wingman.
Well, could Perryman stay back and Howe could push onto a wing now? I know, probably not, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah, no, not now. You wouldn't think. He's such a general in the back line now, Howe. He's I see him as almost the general back there, even though we've got the captain back there. I think he's just a steadier hand than Moore. Yeah.
That's fair. There's four more players that I would like to talk about before we get into the Julian Rowe medal. Let's start with Darcy Cameron. Just another awesome game. Is this the year that he becomes an All-Australian ruck? Like Max Gawn, his last month has just been crazy. He's just been outstanding. But before then, his first 5 or 6 weeks of the year were really bad, and people were questioning whether he was past it. Xavier Ellis said on one of his podcasts, he said, "Geez, I'm concerned about Max. He's just looking slow. He's looking a little bit cooked." Like that's there's no question now that that's not true. He's back to his best, but it's only been 4 weeks. Darcy Cameron has been fantastic since opening round until now. Is he the All-Australian ruck after 9 games?
Well, if you're talking about consistency over the course of the year, I would say Darcy Cameron's been the best ruckman. If you're talking about individual highlighted games, which the media really got a hold of, and a lot of the All-Australian sides are picked, I think, because of media campaigns. They just highlight players so much that they're always constantly sticking them under the nose of the selectors, and the selectors are influenced by that. And as you know, Gawn's had a couple of just games out of the box, like 35 possession games and that sort of type of thing. So they're going to weigh heavily in the selectors' minds. So still, it's a long way to go to the end of the year, though. And at least his name would have been at the forefront of the selectors' minds at the start of this year, like it wouldn't have been at the start of last year, because he had the good year last year. They really would have catapulted him into the selectors' thought process this year. So you'd have to be in their thoughts, wouldn't he, Cameron?
Yeah.
But what do they normally go with 2 or just the 1 ruck?
Yeah, it's just a year-for-year thing. Like, I know when Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn were having those really good years, I think they shared. I think one was on the bench, one was starting ruck a couple of years in a row. So it really depends. He's just so good. I was thinking about this. Other than Gawn, I don't think I've ever seen a ruck that is as good as the intercept mark as what Darcy Cameron is. Ever. In my time watching football, I'm not saying that he's the second best ruck, but just when it goes pushing back and acting basically as an extra defender and intercepting everything, he doesn't drop them. He does not drop them.
Well, to half-time last game, I think at half-time he had 5 intercept marks to their ruckman, a combined 1 mark. And that 1 mark was the dodgy mark that Jackson took on the wing over Cameron in the first quarter, and then kicked it down to Tracy, who kicked the goal from outside 50. So they had the 1 mark between them, which wasn't even legitimate. So, he dominated. Even though Jackson played pretty well in the last quarter, he was pretty good there. But
he just reads the ball so well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Especially drifting back. He's Anyway, it doesn't matter. Go ahead. I was going to talk about Cox. I'm still annoyed from the previous week where Cox dropping those. He played a bit better. Freo, he was a bit better.
Well,
he's just get him, Cox, for crying out loud.
I didn't have this in my notes, but Charlie West almost played. He just missed out because of that injury that he was carrying the week before. I was at the training session in Perth, and he trained fully there. He looked fine, so he's not injured. Does he replace Cox next week?
Or does he replace Membry?
What, you want to drop Membry?
Well, he didn't play well. Membry.
Michael, he's so much better. Are you seriously saying that the Membry should be dropped before Cox?
No, hold on. Well, I'm just thinking about the whole ruck. I'm not comparing them as forwards. I'm thinking, as we've had this debate every week for the last month, about the ruck issue. Cox, but I just think wasn't Membry rested 1 game earlier in the year?
Yes, against Brisbane.
A combination of resting in him and his form hasn't been great. He did a few tough stuff off the ball. He still gets involved, I know that. It wasn't a deplorable game, but I'm thinking if Myercheck comes back in and they want to get a game into West, maybe at Membry's expense, because I'm still loath to use a 19-year-old or whatever he is playing his first game as a second ruck. Like I saw him. I saw a vision of him training during the week. He's not a big bloke. Like he's not strong. He doesn't look strong anyway.
No,
not now.
I'm sorry. I would be if Myercheck's fit. I'd be going in with the Myercheck, Membry, and West combo. So a West essentially replacing what is normally Dan McStay's spot in the team. There's no way in hell that I would be dropping Membry when McStay's injured and Cox has been as bad as he is. That just makes absolutely no sense to me. This is the last time I would. I would. Yeah, nah, I'm sorry. I know he hasn't been seen the world on fire, Tim Membry. But I think that's just a ridiculous comment. He's not losing his spot in this team.
It's not ridiculous. It's not. It's not Michael Jordan at the Bulls in the late '90s. Okay, it's not a ridiculous comment, right? It's in the realms of possibility. But so the second ruck, as discussed last week, you would talk about maybe a Frampton. I brought up Moore as the better option as a second ruck, but I don't think they'd ever do that. So if you were to drop Cox, would you have a Frampton as the second ruck?
Last week I was keen on it, but after watching Big Bill the other night, I wouldn't want to complicate his role because he's just looking as solid as he ever has. So I'm just gonna say Charlie West, just go in there for 10% of the game. You look and say to the midfielders, you're just gonna have to read the opposition ruck, which I gave you the stats a few weeks ago on what I think it was David King. Was it David King? No, Jared Healy. What he was saying on SEN. I would be happy with that. I would honestly just be happy with that because Cox is just giving us nothing. He's giving us nothing. I'm sorry.
All right, what's next?
All right, Bobby Hill. So I went to the game with a couple of friends that knew nothing about AFL, and they've come out and they're converted. They love AFL now. Not sure if love's a strong word, but they like the game and they really enjoyed themselves. And what my mate he loves Bobby Hill. He really enjoyed Bobby Hill, and I said to him, I explained to him that Bobby is very highly talented. He's a star player. His best is right up there in the competition's best small forwards, but inconsistency is what gets him. And I said to him, what you're witnessing now, I think it's his best game since the grand final, the 23 grand final. I'm not sure if you could pick this up on the TV, but he was so clean. I love one-touch players. There's nothing that pisses me off more than when you're in a good position and then you fumble the ball. That pisses me off. Bo McCreary does that a lot. But Bobby Hill, there was this one pickup I think it was about 50 out for us in the last quarter, I think, or maybe it was the third quarter. It was one of the best pickups I've seen in recent memory. It was outstanding. I can't remember if it resulted in a goal or a score or anything, but it just blew me away. He's so highly skilled. And then there was a rundown tackle early in the game, and then he played on and hit, I think, was it Elliott on the chest or it might have been Dacos. It was, I'm not sure I don't think the numbers would maybe have it as his best game since the 23 grand final, but far out. Like, that was a very, very, very impressive performance from Bobby Hill. What did you think?
Well, another thing you can add to when you said he's sometimes inconsistent, I think it's also the position he plays, of course, doesn't always lend itself to consistency. It can be starvation corner, playing deep forward. So I don't think it's all his fault. Yeah, he can be inconsistent. I thought he played a great game. A really good game. Really good game. Pity he missed that goal, and that was a vital goal too. Look, we did kick well for goal, but that one would have put us 27 points in front and almost game over, you'd almost think. Instead, it went down the other end and suddenly we're only 14 points up because they could get 2-goal turnover. So that was a bad miss. But, really, really good game overall from him. Yeah.
Well, his little mates in that forward line, Lockie Schultz, I normally save the stats to the Julian Rowe medal. But I'm going to read out what he did in basically 3 quarters because he obviously was knocked out early in the fourth. So he only had the 10 disposals, but he had 21 pressure acts. He had 4 inside 50s in a game where we weren't getting the inside 50. And despite not kicking a goal, he had 3 direct goal assists. So not score involvements, 3-goal assist. He didn't get a lot of the ball, but far out. I've watched him live quite a bit the last few weeks, and the way that he the way he pressures the opposition, the way he chases, it's always been impressive. Especially that Carlton game when he got best on ground. But I think when it came to his efforts the other night, that was the best I've seen so far. He was fucking unreal. I couldn't believe nobody works harder than Lockie Schultz. I'm not even Nick Dacos. And I was just blown away. And it's such a shame that he got knocked out. Such a shame. And we're going to miss him for the next game. Hopefully only the one game. But surprisingly, when I was looking at his stats, he only had the 2 tackles. I thought I was going to look at it and it'd be like 10. He only had the 2, but the pressure acts were crazy, and we all, maybe not you, you're his biggest fan, but the rest of us Collingwood supporters over the last year, I think we just needed to calm down and give him some time to settle in. The way that we're doing with Dan Houston, I'm not hearing the abuse for Dan Houston the way that Lockie Schultz was getting bagged last year. So I put my hand up, apologise, because he's now gone from my whipping boy to, honestly, he's up there and one of my favourite players at the club. I fucking love Shooter. Did you notice the sort of his work rate in that game on the TV? Or
yes, at first when you started your little speech there, I thought this is a subconscious cry for me to bring back the long forgotten segment recant. The long forgotten segment recant, where you put your hand up for stupid things. In this case, you've said previously, i.e., I would prefer Ginnivan back than Lockie Schultz. Remember that one? But
yes.
You did consciously say the words yourself, in effect, that you did make a mistake. Yeah, I always sat back last year and thought these people were a bit hysterical. First year at the club, he's ended up with mid-20 goals, 85, 90 tackles, whatever he laid. I thought that's a bad year. Wait until he settles in. I thought spoiler alert again, even though he got knocked out late and he was quieter as the game wore on, he's in my votes because I just thought he was huge, especially in that first quarter when we were under the pump. He was the guy keeping us in it, just his pressure acts, his forcing of turnovers, that one in the centre of the ground where he
punched the ball away. Yeah.
Ball away, and we're able to clear it and get it down. And was it Jamie Elliott got it out the back?
Yep.
It was that just stuff like that. He's got the guy, not to go, he won't ever be this, but he's got captaincy material.
Yeah, he's not going to be the captain, but yeah.
Well, thank you for just repeating what I said. I did know he'll never be the captain, but he's
potential leadership group maybe.
He's got captaincy written all over him. He's got the Tony Shaw attitude about him. How old is he?
I don't know, late 27 probably or something, yeah.
No, he'll never be captain, but he wouldn't be out of place as a captain. If he was 22, of which I knew he wasn't, but if he was 22, you'd be earmarking him as a possible future captain. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with that, but I definitely think he wouldn't be out of place in the leadership group.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to agree or disagree. I'm just telling you what I think. But anyway...
so what was your segment that you wanted to bring back, a non-existent segment? Recant?
The long-forgotten recant.
Well, let's bring it back, because let's talk about Jamie Elliott. A guy that was described 18 months ago by Michael as washed and will be out of the 22 at the end of the 2024 season. He's now probably the best small forward in the competition, and he's on track to smashing his record for most goals in a year if hopefully he doesn't get injured.
Okay, so now's my chance to respond without interruption.
Go on.
I did say that. I did say that by the end, was it last year or the year before? By the end of the year, I can see him being out of the side. I think it was actually the year before, wasn't it? It was the premiership year.
It was leading into the 2024 season.
Oh, yes, it was last year. Yes.
Because you said it on the podcast, and we only started last year.
Yeah. And the reason behind that was because I thought not so much his form, his body. I thought his body starting to fail him again, and I could see him. The rigors of the AFL would catch up to him, and by the end of the year, he'd be out of the side. And I did think that was going to happen, but it wasn't based on his ability or his form. It was based on his body holding up.
Can I just interrupt and say, yeah, his body has been a concern, but you were saying that after our premiership year when he kicked 39 goals, which is his career high. So it's not like he was struggling with his body that year. You were basing it off nothing, really.
I was basing it off the previous year. I think in the last 6 weeks of the 2023 season, his body did start. He was still turning up, but he wasn't. His body was starting to let him down. His last kind of couple of weeks leading to finals, and his finals weren't crash hot.
Well,
probably due to injury, probably, or carrying injury.
We're talking about the All-Australian with Darcy Cameron before. Could this be Jamie Elliott's first year as an All-Australian? I bloody hope so, because he deserves it. He's a superstar small forward at a competition. Over the last 10 years, there wouldn't be many better than him. He's the definition of underrated. We've talked about Billy Frampton being underrated, like his Schultz, and we'll talk about Jack Chris soon, who is literally close to the most underrated player in the comp. But Elliott is up there too, isn't he? Like he deserves an All-Australian this year. He at this rate, he's going to kick 50 goals, and they can't ignore him if he kicks 50 goals.
Well, yeah. He doesn't deserve it because we're not far enough into the season yet.
So if he continues his form, then he deserves it.
Yeah, if he continues his form, you'd have to seriously consider. But not that he's the same type of small forward. But Jack Higgins is. He didn't end the game last night. He got sick and had to sit it out, unfortunately, because I was really kind of cheering for the Saints.
I didn't watch any of that game. I was out last night. Carlton lost, and Carlton won. Did they win? I'm literally not caught up at all.
Yeah, I turned it off about 3 minutes ago. Harry Mackay just kicked the seal off from the boundary line.
They won. Yeah, okay.
I think about 20 points up. Carlton had a lot of. I think they had 2 players off, McGovern and somebody else who weren't coming back. So they were struggling in the bench, and they were kind of 14 points up at 3/4 time. And the feeling was the Saints would run over them, but they couldn't bridge the gap.
So similar to the feeling, I guess it was that Freo were going to overrun us, so not dissimilar to that.
Yeah, similar. But Jack Higgins is having a very good year. I've always rated Jack. I've always liked Jack Higgins. When Collingwood supporters hated him when he was chucking the ball, and it wasn't. We all know what I'm talking about. I always liked the guy. He was I know this isn't St Kilda's podcast, but I remember in his draft year, he came out and he said, "I want to be the greatest player ever." That's what he said before being drafted. And
it's got a while to go.
Yeah, of course, he was never going to become the greatest player ever. But just for him to say that, I found, admirable. For a guy to put himself out like that and say, "I want to be the greatest player ever." And I've kind of ever since he said that, I kept an eye on him. And he's a guy who makes things happen. And I really like him. And, so he'll be pushing for Australian this year. I think he's got about 20 goals for the year so far.
I think it's disrespectful to put someone like Jack Higgins in the same category as someone like Jamie Elliott. But luckily, anyway, there's more than one spot for a small forward in an Australian team.
Yeah, no, there's different types of small forwards.
Elliott's far better, though.
The Jamie Elliott's more of your lead. He's almost like your small full forward. He's a lead-up type. He's good over his head. He's good on the ground. Whereas, Jack Higgins is your stereotypical forward pocket, crafty forward pocket.
It was funny. As we were walking out of the game afterwards, I was walking with my mates, and I said, "Far out, Jamie Elliott was good." Like normally when you're at the MCG, you got all the stats on the board. Freo are the most biased home team ever. They had nothing to do with Collingwood on the big screen. Obviously, when you're in places, football grounds like Optus Stadium and the G and whatever, you struggle to get service on your phone, so you can't check it. So I didn't really know what any of the stats were. And as we were walking out, I said, "Fuck, Jamie Elliott was good." Did he kick 3 or 4? That's what I said. I click on it, and I'm 6. I lost count. I was like, 6. I just couldn't believe it. Like, I knew he was amazing. I knew he was involved a lot. But, yeah, obviously I lost count, and I was thinking it was more like 3 or 4. Absolutely blown away. Like, the career high as a 32-year-old. The only thing Look, he's probably due for a rest, actually. Being the age of the years with the injury issues, he's one of the only older guys that hasn't been rested yet. So maybe this injury, whether it's serious or not, maybe that's an excuse next week to just put him on ice for a week against the Crows, bring all the other guys back.
Well, let's not forget to get to the Crows later with our preview. We always forget about that. But you talked about Cox. I was talking to my brother Anthony yesterday, and he said, Jamie Elliott's got Cox to thank for a couple of his goals, because I think I vaguely remember him. He did some great shipping on the line once for Elliott's goal to go through, but Anthony reckons he did it a couple of times. Do you recall that? Cox right on the line?
Not really, no.
No.
You've just cut out. Well, I can still hear. Oh, there you are. Yeah, your picture cut out, but
yeah.
All right. So the one last player we'll talk about before we get into the votes is Jack Crisp. So we briefly mentioned him before. Obviously, his record-breaking game last week didn't end the way that any of us wanted.
Savaged by yourself last week.
It wasn't savage. I just said it was a simple choke. I didn't even hold it against him, but I just called it for what it was.
We know what you said, Dermot. Don't worry about it.
Go back and listen, and you'll see that it wasn't.
I don't need to go back to listen. I remember what you said, and so does the listeners.
But in a game where where Long and Sidebottom were way below their best, and Dacos was injured, and we had no DeGoey and no Pendlebury, and no one other than this guy got over 20 disposals for Collingwood, Jack Crisp just absolutely starred. He was on top of every single category in the stat sheet, which I'll definitely read out in the Julian Rowe medal. He just put on a show. And, we talk about Billy Frampton playing his best ever game, and Elliott potentially playing his best ever game, and Bobby Hill playing his best game since the 23 grand final. I think Jack Crisp is, what is it now, 246 in a row. There wouldn't be many better than that. Like, I know he's played some huge finals, but that was just outrageous. Like, back in the midfield after spending a whole year on the wing, just shows, how many great inside mids we have when we talk about, Pendlebury, Dacos, Sidebottom, Long this year, and then saying that someone like a Perryman can't fit in because of them. Crisp is the forgotten man. He's just simply the forgotten man. His best position is inside mid, and we saw that on the weekend. It's just he's also the most flexible. So there's no doubt he'll eventually get pushed back onto the wing. But just knowing that we have that option for him to go in there, similar to the Goey, is just exciting.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how far he can go on, because at the age of 31, he hasn't lost his drive, his running ability, which is what his game's based on. His game's based on the run and carry, and that's different to some of our other senior guys like Pendlebury and Sidebottom, who don't base their game around run, so have been able to go on into their mid-30s, or in Pendlebury's case, late 30s. But Crisp, he prepares himself so well. It'll be just interesting to see how far he can go, given his game's built around running. I was thinking about these guys who go on to their late 30s. Michael Tuck, he doesn't get the credit. Like, he went on, his last game was as a premiership captain, and then the Hawthorn made him retire, even though he reckons he could have kept on going, and he probably could. He was 38. He started in the early 1970s. No, they didn't have their freaking their team of medical sciences that they got now. That guy was incredible to play over 400 games, 426, whatever it was.
KB as well.
Yeah, KB as well. During the but KB went on till he was about, I stand to be corrected here, maybe 33, 34, whereas Tuck went on when he's 38. And Tuck played 100 reserves games. So Tuck played close to 550 games of AFL and VFL and seconds. Just incredible. But anyway, we talked about Crisp. Yeah, but Crisp, incredible. Yeah, I wonder where it will end for him. Wonder how far he can go.
All right, let's get into the Julian Rowe medal.
Been pretty good, Julian Rowe. He's been better than pretty good. He's been a forward that has presented for them today.
All right, so I've given my full 60. Originally I didn't. I had it more about the mid 50s, but the more I started thinking about it, some of these guys and especially defenders, they deserved a good amount of votes. So I'll start with Lockie Schultz, who I gave 3 votes to. We already spoke about him. He had the 10 disposals, 21 pressure acts, 4 inside 50s, and 3 goal assists. I've then given 3 players 5 votes, all of them from our defence, and that is Harry Perryman, who had the 16 disposals, 6 marks, 6 tackles, and 5 intercept possessions. Jeremy Howe with the 17 disposals, 7 marks, and 453 metres gained. And Darcy Moore, who had the 9 disposals, 6 marks, and 6 intercept possessions. I've then given 2 players 7 votes, one of them being Billy Frampton. He had the 15 disposals, a team high 9 marks, and an equal game high 8 intercept possessions. And Darcy Cameron, who had the 19 disposals, 10 contested possessions, 8 marks, 6 intercept possessions, and 28 hitouts. I've then given 8 votes to Bobby Hill. He had the 14 disposals, 349 metres gained, 7 scoring involvements, a goal assist, and 3 goals won. And then I've given 2 players maximum votes, 10 votes. Jack Crisp, we wouldn't have been able to do it without him. He had a team high 29 disposals, a game high 18 contested possessions, 6 tackles, 22 pressure acts, a team high 7 clearances, a team high 5 inside 50s, a game high 709 metres gained, 6 score involvements, a goal assist, and 2 goals of his own. And of course, Jamie Elliott, probably the best game of his career. He had the 14 disposals, 8 marks, 401 metres gained, a goal assist, and a game high 6 goals too. So to wrap that up, it's Elliott 10, Crisp 10, Bobby Hill 8, Cameron 7, Big Billy Frampton 7, Moore 5, Howe 5, Perryman 5, and Lockie Schultz 3.
Right. Okay. Well, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for a total of 60. So you had 9. You had more. I didn't have more in. I had McCreary in. That's the only difference. The other 8 were the same. So I've got Crisp 9, Cameron 8, Elliott 8, Hill 8, Howe 7, McCreary 6. I was taken with his game. Frampton 5, Perryman 5, and Schultz 4.
Well, tell me a little bit about McCreary then. Talk about why you liked his game so much. Oh no, I'm not saying that you're wrong. It's just I saw that he was high up in pressure acts and tackles and all that, which is great. It's just obviously you're watching on TV, I'm watching it at the game, so sometimes we see it a little bit differently. I obviously don't have him in my vote, so I want to know what you liked about his game.
Well, just the decisive moments, and that's what you get with McCreary. Like glancing at his stats, I think he got the 13%. Yeah, he's never gonna blow it out of the water as far as possessions. But there were moments. There was that great rundown tackle in the last quarter.
Oh yeah,
that
was bloody good, wasn't it? Yeah.
There was a run around the wing and kick it 45 to centre half forward, picking a guy out on the chest, results in a goal. Bringing it back inboard, which he's very good at. It was a significant centre clearance, running out of the centre square, out of the front of the centre square in the last quarter. It was moments like decisive possessions. Like only got the 13 times, although a lot of decisive possessions amongst them, and a lot of strong tackling. So the old eye test. Yeah. So as I said, only 13 possessions, but I think he was very impactful.
No, fair enough. I still think it was a bit harsh he didn't give Darcy Moore a vote when you look at those inside 50s and how well he held up. Like he was bloody good.
Well, I think I think he was still annoying me from the previous week when he gave away those 3 goals in a tight game. So I think he has to serve his penance for those. But no, I don't think any of the guys I spoke of. Well, you agreed with 8 of the 9.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with Bo McCreary. I thought he was good. I just didn't give him a vote. Same way that I didn't give Lockie Sullivan votes, who I thought was good. Like you can't get them all in.
Yeah, and also Freo didn't do, as I touched on earlier on, didn't do themselves any favours with the way they brought the ball into the forward 50. You'd hate to be a forward in their side.
Yeah.
So, can I just touch on? Are we finished with Drawing Row Medal? Yep.
Yep.
Just the one. And I say we don't like to pot the umpires in this show, but we tend to do it every week, and I do enjoy it a little bit. There was the Membry tackle on Pearce. Was it the quarter?
And he just placed it on the fucking ground.
Yeah, if you'd indulge me for a moment, yes. Listeners, he placed it on the fucking ground. So what he did, the decisions that annoy me, much like the previous week, is where something happens and it's not obscured. So it doesn't happen in a pack where the umpire's visions can be, prevented. This one, like the Duncan throw of last week, happened out in the open, and you go, how 4 umpires could have missed it is beyond me. So as all the listeners probably know, Membry grabs him, tackles him, and Pearce just decides to place the ball on the ground and picks it up again, dishes off a handball. They get it forward. They kick a goal. I think it was, who was it? Former Richmond player? Bolton kicked a goal around the corner. But it was just so blatantly obvious. It was just stereotypical incorrect disposal. If you get tackled and you bring the ball to ground and put it on the ground, that's a free kick.
And
Can't do that.
And to touch on the umpires, I'm not buying that was a dangerous tackle against Bo McCreary. I even saw some people saying he might get a week for it. It wasn't even a fucking free kick, in my opinion. No way was that a dangerous tackle. He had an arm free as well.
Yeah. You really support your arguments well with the use of swearing to them.
When it comes to the umpires, I can't help but swear.
I'm not convinced until you roll out a profanity. And I think, well, that's a good argument. He said fucking at the end of it. Look, I don't think he should go.
No, it's already safe. It's fine.
Really already safe. I thought I was going to say I don't think he should go, but I fear he will. So that's it. I think we've escaped with one there.
Well, as far as I know, because I haven't been keeping up to date. I've been in WA with my friends, so I haven't really been on the socials. But he definitely hasn't been suspended. And as far as I know, it happens the day after now. So I guess he's free.
Well, you can understand the North Melbourne supporters getting even more frustrated because that was worse than the Curtis tackle.
Oh, Curtis one was bad, a bad suspension. He shouldn't have been suspended, but.
Yeah.
But there's no way two wrongs don't make a right. Just because they fucked up there, just because they stuffed up there doesn't mean they can stuff up again. That Bo McCreary one shouldn't have even been a free kick. So if he got suspended, that would have been one of the all-time worst suspensions.
But if you're laying them one next to the other, I would say that the McCreary one. I think neither of them should go. But I would have thought the McCreary one was clearly worse. It was more of a slinging motion, and the guys. Yeah, hit his head as well due to the sling motion. But that's great if he got off because I thought he would have been off for a week or so with that.
All right. Let's get into Who Am I? All right. Who am I? It's Michael's turn today to give me one, but just to touch on last week's one, as we all know, we were unsure whether Michael got the 1 point or not, and I told the listeners to go back and listen. So I think it was I thought I said Premiership player. Michael thought what was it again? Michael thought I said Premiership captain, and he guessed wrong because he said that I didn't give the proper instructions, or I didn't say how it was written, and apparently he just misheard me. When I went back and listened, I said Premiership player. He got it wrong at 0 points. It's unfortunate, but it's just how it is.
You know what? This has seriously been bothering me all week. I've been spewing. Like, I try to take comfort in the sufferings of others to put it into context. I think they're doing it tough in Ukraine, the Gaza Strip, but it didn't soothe me at all. I've been spewing about the fact that I didn't get Wes Fellows, and yes, it was all my fault. I don't know what I was thinking because
I can't believe you admit that.
Well, I just don't know what I was thinking because I knew the West Fellows won the 86 Copeland. I knew that. I've always known he won that. And you said this player won the 86 Copeland. I knew that Mark Wiedemann hadn't played 100 games. I knew for a fact he played 41 games. And how I knew that is when his son was playing for Melbourne, I thought, oh, how far was Mark off father's, qualifying for 100 games? So Sam could have been available. Luckily, he wasn't. That's another story. And so I read in an article about 3 or 4 years ago, he only played 41 games. So I knew Mark Wiedemann had played 41 games. You said the guy played 102 games. You said he won the 86 Copeland. I knew Wes had won the 86 Copeland. But just in my head, I thought you said the captain of the 58 Premiership side. Murray Wiedemann's captain. Mark Wiedemann's his son. Splurted out Mark Wiedemann.
And you normally overthink everything, and there's normally silence, and I tell you, Michael, you have to talk at the podcast. So the one time you didn't do that, and it cost you.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Let's get on with it. Give me your best. Let's say
battery's running out a bit, so we better be quick. 5 votes.
5 points.
I just had to remember who this player was. I haven't got him written down.
You don't even know your own who am I.
Right, okay, got it now.
5 points, not votes.
Yeah, 5 points. Pick 77 in the 2013 National Draft to Collingwood.
2013, pick 77. 2013.
Yep.
So his first year would have been 2014 then. All right. Yep. Next. I'm not going to get that. So
for 4 points, made my debut in round 19 versus Carlton of 2015. Sorry, I'm down to 10%. Sorry.
Round what?
Round 19 versus Carlton, 2015.
Round 15, 20. Round 15, 20. What?
Sorry, no, 19, 2015. Round 19 versus Carlton, 2015.
Okay. In 2015, it was Tom Langdon.
I'll keep on going because
yeah, I think I don't know how I remember that, but go on. Wait, maybe it wasn't. We're around 19.
Round 19, 2015 versus Carlton.
I think I fucked up. I think Tom Langdon debuted earlier in the year, but go on. Fuck.
Right. So that was your final answer, wasn't it?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. For 3 points, my brother played 25 games for Sydney.
I know. Well, now I've definitely stuffed up because Ed Allen plays for Melbourne and Freo, so definitely stuffed up. He played 20. Yeah, go on. Damn it.
But for 2 points, keep on saying votes, 2 points. I retired from the AFL to return to my home state of WA after 15 games.
Jonathan Marsh. Damn it.
Jonathan, yeah. And last one, signed as a rookie by Sydney, by St Kilda in 2019 and played 11 games before returning to WA again.
I just did a Michael. I just lost my head. Tom Langdon popped in straight away, and I didn't even think about it. I just said it. I did a you after you. Now I'll be sitting on that all the way.
Doing it me.
Because I couldn't even be wrong. I just remember Tom Langdon. I feel like it was his first game. It was against Carlton. I could be wrong because I remember Daisy Thomas playing for the Blues and getting stuck into him. And that was just in my head. And I knew he was a late pick. He may have even been a rookie pick. So, and it just made sense. But then the moment I said it and remembered it was round 19, I was like, I swear Langdon was there very early in his debut season. So I knew I stuffed up then. Bloody hell, that's annoying.
There you go. Jonathan, I liked Jonathan Marsh. He was a good size, running backman, had a bit of aggression about him. And I was disappointed when he went back to WA. And I was even more disappointed when St Kilda picked him up. I thought, well, gee, they got one here. But his head obviously wasn't in the game. I think he just sounds like he's the type of guy who kept on wanting to go home. But I was surprised when Freo or Eagles didn't pick him up. But maybe he just didn't want to play AFL. Who knows? Didn't seem committed.
All right. So before we wrap this up, give us a tip for next week.
Adelaide have been threatening to beat us for the last few years. There have been one-kick games, even at the MCG. Look, I have to say the Pies because we're playing that well, but with no confidence again. I think I might have got it on the money. What did we win by the other? We won by 14. Go back. I think I might have said 14. I think I might have said 15. But I'll say the same because I think the average winning margin in AFL was 17 points. Do you know that? As of a couple of years ago, the average overall game, 17 points. I would say 16 points to Pies.
I'll go Pies by 25, but I get what you mean. They're dangerous. They are very dangerous. They've got a good forward line. Riley Philthorpe, Tex Walker, Darcy Fogarty. Is he playing or is he injured? So I'm really not up to date.
Fogarty's back. I think he played in the last game.
Okay, see, that's how out of the loop I am. But yeah, got a good midfield, Rankin and Dawson and those kind of guys. So yeah, it's going to be a danger game. We're now officially past the really difficult period of the season, which was the first 9 games. But I don't think we're expecting Adelaide to be this good. So we'll see what happens. But I'm confident with all our older guys now being rested, we'll be on. We'll win the game, but it's not going to be easy.
Well, hopefully it's a bit wet because if it's a bit wet, with all their tall guys are in the forward line, they're real danger. So if we can nullify them a bit with a bit of wet weather and the ball's on the ground, we should be able to run it out of the back line pretty well.
Yep, fair enough. Anyway, any final words before we wrap this up, Mick?
No, let me just check my notes. I don't think so. No, nothing from me.
Are you excited to be back in the Into the Woods studio next week? It's been what 7 or so episodes of the Zoom.
I can't remember the last time I was excited about anything.
All right. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you want to follow our socials, you can find us on X at Into the Woods Pod and on Instagram at Into the Woods Pod 10. Thanks for listening. We look forward to doing it again next week. See ya.